Hey, how's it going, sir?
Good.
Brent Chesney.
Hey.
Brent Chesney. I had to say it like that because I forget how long I've known you. Not like as close
Long
as we
time.
know now,
Right.
but back in the day, you used to come to the radio station, and Rex would always say it like that.
Oh, my gosh.
But I didn't know who you were, and you
And
just
the wind
came in.
blows, and it's Brent Chesney's fault. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
Rex
everything was.
used to- Yeah, Rex.
There's like all these inside jokes. So Brent Chesney would show up to the radio station over there, iHeartRadio, and you would just like walk into the different stations. Like we had rock, we had country, we had KCB, which is Tejano, we had Jim Lago, which a lot of the time is where you spend some time, and you would just walk in. But I never understood. Even now, I don't know what you do exactly. Like, what is your actual role? That when you meet new people, you're like, "Hey, how's it going?" What is the first thing you tell them about yourself?
Well, what I do professionally is kind of a complex myriad
That's
of
what I'm
things,
saying.
right? Of course, I'm a county commissioner, Nueces County Commissioner, Precinct 4. Then I have several businesses. My primary business is First Title Company, which you're very familiar with, and appreciate that. And so I run that, and then I've got other businesses that I invest in. I've got different things that we do. I've got some real estate around town, different things.
But back then, what were you doing? So that was like maybe early 2000s, 2006, 7, 8.
Well, it varies. So I started off in real estate. Actually, I was running a property management company here. My first
Really?
job out of college for a guy named Leon Loeb, rest in peace. Leon gave me my first job out of college, and I ran his real estate company for several years. Then went to work for Todd Hunter when Todd was a state rep. So I was his first chief of staff back in 1989. So I'm dating myself. I'm pretty old. You young guys, you weren't even born then.
Year.
And so I did that for a while. And then Todd and I had a real estate partnership. I ran his law firm, did several things. And I went back to law school when I was 29 and went to South Texas College of Law in Houston. Came back out, was making less money as a lawyer than I was before, but it's okay, it worked out. And so back to work for him and his law firm. So I'm telling you all this because I've been going to Rex's show for a long time. I mean, Rex and I just had a.
But were you
fun
going in
relationship.
as the real estate guy, or are you
No,
going in
I think
as
as a city council probably
okay.
back then. I was on the Corpus Christi City Council from 2001 to 2007, and then again in 2009. So probably more kind of informative. That's probably why I was going on to Lago, and then Rex would always just tell me, "Hey, when you come to Lago, just pop your head in. If I got time, I'll get you in there." I'm like, "Okay."
And just like everybody knew you.
Yeah,
Is
I
that
don't
kind
know
of the
about
way
that.
you feel when you get around town? Like everybody know you, but they don't know where they know you from.
I don't know. I just came from a lunch. It was kind of cool. I put a reunion together of council members, mayors, and a former city secretary that I'd served with on the council. Not everybody showed up, but we had a pretty good contingency, and we kind of we talk about it all the time. I was kind of the growth guy, right? When I came back to town a long time ago, there wasn't much going on in Corpus Christi, and the Taxpayers Association, run by a guy named Joe O'Brien, rest in peace, kind of killed everything, right? That was their thing. If it cost more money, if it did more things, whatever. Well, when I started running for office, myself and several others, and we didn't do it as a slate, but we were all young, back into town. We were like, this place is so awesome, has so much potential. I grew up here. I wanted to make my home here, but it was hard. When I came back from college, there wasn't anything going, right? There wasn't more plaza. It was crazy. There wasn't much.
Was it hard back then? And I have a lot of questions actually making me think about. Was it hard back then to have the town grow from a funds perspective, or just someone to take that risk, or no space? Because obviously there was land,
Tons of space,
and you mentioned more plazas. So like for me,
I wasn't even here.
For me, being younger, I'm 40, right?
Yeah.
So the thing I remember the earliest was when Moore Plaza was purchased from Blanche Moore. And they started building more plaza, and they had the HEB, and they gave away $100,000. And I'm like, this is a big deal. And I was a kid thinking like, wow, this is cool. Like all this new stuff. And that's when I feel like everybody's moving towards South Side. Now it's starting to move even further out.
Right.
It feels like. So back then, what was the holdup?
The holdup was just that people didn't want to take risks. You had a very vocal, what we called them, the Againer group. We had a very vocal group that would come down to city council, and those people on the council listened to them because that's who came the most, and they would just anything that was going to cost money, anything that was going to, do anything with tax increases or whatever the case may be, or tax base expansion. They didn't want to do it. It was status quo. It was a sleepy fishing village, right? So when I started running for office, I would say, look, here's the deal. Like I'm the growth guy. I want growth. And this was before I was in the title business. I was working for Todd, and then I had my own law practice, and I didn't get into the title business till well after I'd gotten on the council. And, but I said all along, look, I want this place to grow. If you don't if you don't want growth and a lot of it, don't vote for me. I mean, I was real candid about it.
So was those the issues you ran on, and were they personal, like feelings? Like, hey, I just want it for me and my family. Did you have family yet?
No, I was single. I was single
Really?
for a long time. I didn't get married till I was 38 years old.
Really?
So it was just me, but I wanted to be here. You know, like I grew up here. I went away to college. I went away to law school, but I came back on purpose.
Where'd you go to law school at again?
I went to South Texas College of Law.
So is that kind of the area you saw growing in a way you wanted to, or where did you see places growing where you're like, I'm bringing that down here?
Every place but, right? I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, that was the answer. Like, I went to school in Fort Worth, where, you know, at TCU, and I would watch how the Bass Brothers just took over downtown. And if you go to downtown Fort Worth, it wasn't like that when I was in college, but you could see it coming because they owned so much property and they did stuff. So here's Fort Worth just blowing and going. Austin, San Antonio blowing and going. Houston blowing and going. And Corpus, you know, not so much, kind of blowing, but not going.
But like you said, there's a lot of people that are on the board that every time they heard an idea, if it's going to cost $1, they just weren't wanting to do it.
Right.
Was that for, you don't have to say names, but back then, was there just people for their selfish reasons? They didn't want things to grow, or it wasn't benefiting them, so they didn't want to help?
You know,
because it seems like someone that's in that position would want to. That's the ultimate goal for any town turning into a city, turning into a metropolis, turning into a mega city. Hey guys, we're either going to go this direction, or we're just, what are we doing? We're just spinning our wheels.
And it's hard to say because some of it was property was held up, like the Blanchmore property, right?
Yeah.
That didn't
How many
peel
acres is
off.
that?
Oh
It's
my
like
gosh, I don't
100,
even know.
200?
Lots, but I mean that was prime land, and that didn't peel off for a long time. So some of it was circumstantial, right? Some of it was until that Blanchmore property started opening up, and that's retail, right? There's all kinds of elements, right? But until that,
But it
opened
takes those
up-
people making those risks for everybody else, the developers, to go, okay, we'll start building houses over there.
Right.
I've always told people, when you see new construction going up, that people that built it took a while to plan that out. They weren't just like, this is a good spot. They have to think about it. They have to talk to y'all. They have to get the city codes and permits and all these different things. So they kind of have an idea of where it's going. So it just takes that first person to go, yeah, I'm going to build a shopping center, or I'm going to go ahead and construct a school, or I'm going to construct these houses.
Well, and for example, when I got on the council, there had been a huge dereliction of street repair from about the mid-'80s through when I got on the council in 2001, give or take, right? There might have been a little bit. So we went on and we said, look, we got to fix streets, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because we're billions behind and we're never catching up, and we're still behind and we're never catching
I know
up
you.
here.
Well, you're at the city. So the last guest we had on was Philip Ramirez.
Yeah,
Do you know
saw
Philip?
that.
He's
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
And we were talking about how at the State of the City, that was like the big, almost the whole time was the city plan for the streets. So you're saying this has been happening since 19 what?
What's it? Yeah, that's right. And so when I got on, we said, look, we can't do this on our own. We got to start putting bonds out there. But there hadn't been a bond package that had passed since 1986, because the 1986 one passed, and then the market crashed and they weren't able to finish it. So there was a lack of trust in the community that we're not going to pass a bond because you're not going to finish it,
Yeah.
right? So we came in and said, look, we're going to do small. We're going to start small. We're going to start with this $30 million bond, and here's what we're going to do. And it's going to be a lot of streets, but it's going to be other things. We passed that one. Then there was another one. So we passed 2 or 3 bonds, and we got them all done, and we got them all done on track. Still millions and millions and millions behind, but we're still catching up in this city from 1986. Like, that's how far back it goes. So we'll never be where we want to be with streets in this community, because you can't financially put it on the backs of taxpayers to the point at which it just bankrupts, or the tax rates go high, that businesses won't come here, that kind of thing. So the city has an aggressive plan now that the mayor outlined when, I was at the State of City too, and at the end of the day, as one of the council members said, well, we might actually see some streets in our lifetimes, right? Because it is that we still have the worst streets in town, and I get it, right? I mean,
What is
they're
it that
horrible.
maybe I'm wrong, but in other cities, I feel like all cities have street issues, or is it just that we don't visit as often, so we don't see it?
It depends. Like the newer kind of cities, like if you go up into Collin County in that Dallas area, where like Frisco, Texas.
Oh, speaking of
they're
Frisco,
all concrete.
the first time I went to Frisco, it looked like God just dropped the city down.
Unbelievable.
And it was like everything was brand new. Like I said, streets are new,
Unreal.
concrete. Like how did this happen?
Right. Well, and that's the thing too. There's politics involved, right? Why do we build asphalt streets when concrete's way better? Okay, you could say concrete's more expensive, but it holds up way longer. It's really easy to replace. You go cut the piece out, you replace the piece, and you move on down the road. Well, you got a lot of big time asphalt, plants here that have
Sure.
a lot of influence and had a lot of influence, and it's hard to do. So you got a lot of asphalt streets in this community that, had we started building concrete streets, we'd be in a lot better shape. Look at Staples. It's phenomenal, man. I mean, it's awesome. I don't care what anybody tells me. There is not an asphalt street that's going to be as good as a concrete street. It's just not. You can always find an engineer to say something. but it's just not. And so when that opportunity came, unfortunately, you couldn't get the votes to go concrete because the asphalt guys were beating on the council
Yeah, no,
members.
we're going
and
to keep
there
it
was
the
a
way
couple
we
of-
planned. We're going to keep it. Yeah.
There was a couple of 5-4 votes. We got close, but we didn't quite get there. So
that was like a recent choice that was made?
15 years ago. I mean,
Oh, okay.
but I mean, that's recent. Like not maybe, that's.
But like you said, the plans, and I think what people forget, the plans and the bonds that are being enacted now are from what, a decade ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago?
Yeah, because when you pass the street work, you have a track on it, right? So a lot of the stuff got done while we were there, but I cycled off. I ran from their office, but I cycled off before some of what we passed got done. So yes, the answer is, and especially with this aggressive plan they got coming, that's going to take years to do because you can't get every street done at the same time, or there's no place to drive.
Yeah.
You have to.
Are we taking helicopters to work? What are we doing?
And think about how people gripe about street work as it is. Well, why'd you do this street work and this one at the same time? Well, we can't get up Everhart or Weber.
Yeah.
Well, so you've got to, you can't do Everhart, Weber, Staples, and Airline, or you're screwing the whole South Side. You can't do it. So you got to do it strategically, and you got to do it on a time frame. And there's only so many workers to get jobs done, right? I mean, that's part of it too. So it takes time, and I'm not certainly defending anything. I think the councils, since I was on and after I was on, have done as much as they can do streetwise, but for the fact that we were so far behind from 86 to 2000, well, I'd say 86 to 1999, there was a 13-year gap where there was hardly any street work done. That's 13 years of no street work or no significant street work. That sets you back 2 or 3 decades because the ones you're not in, and you're now the new streets you're building with the new developments. Okay, that doesn't count, right?
Yeah.
If you're building a new street because London's cranking and the South Side's cranking, I'm saying you've got to go back to the middle of this city and start doing the infrastructure. I can't drive down Santa Fe without getting my car out of alignment. And there's been so many overlays on that street that you got to,
Well, the same thing with Staples, like heading towards Ray in that direction over there.
Horrible.
So
and until you replace those streets, like take them down to the nubs and put concrete on them, and you just keep putting overlays on them, you're gonna have mountains. You can't even hardly get out of the streets off Santa Fe because you got to go up the mountain to take a right turn to get onto Santa Fe.
I think
terrible.
everything you're saying, people just don't take in consideration, and unfortunately, I feel like the last couple of years, there's so much good stuff happening.
So much.
You see it.
So much
and
good stuff.
People post about it. The news posts about it. People post about it, and then there's just that big majority, unfortunately, that have nothing else to say other than what about the streets?
Right.
And so I'm not trying to make this like the street show.
Nah, I don't want to
But
either.
also, I know that you're someone that's behind the scenes on a lot of stuff. And so when you got into city council and you started being commissioner, where did you feel the most pressure? What position? To where it's like people are looking at me because, hey, you're the guys, right? Y'all are the people that need to fix this.
Right. No doubt on the council. Always pressure in any elected official office you've had. I've served on the city council. I was a judge. That was a huge amount of pressure and a different kind of pressure. And then being on the commissioner's court. But the city of Corpus Christi has so much more jurisdiction than the county does because basically we do everything that's not in an unincorporated area. Mm-hmm. And we do jails and the courts and tax assessor collector. I mean, we have services, right? But the streets, that's all city. I mean, 85-90% city. Do we have some county roads? Yeah, but we're pretty, I'm not saying not all county roads are in great shape, but we're in pretty good shape there because county roads have a different standard to build to than city roads.
We're also not getting the traffic that the city roads are getting.
Right, exactly. So, but like you said, there's a ton of good stuff going on in this community that people forget about, or don't forget about, but people don't emphasize. I mean, the growth that we've seen here in this community has been quality growth, in my opinion. We've got a lot of industry that's come in. Some people don't like refineries. Well, you know what? That's what we are. If you don't like the refineries, then you probably shouldn't live in Corpus Christi because industry is a big part of what we do and what we are here.
Think about the jobs this applies to.
Like it or not, right?
Yeah.
We got the base. That's freaking base is awesome. We're so fortunate to have such a
what is that, like 4,000 people?
Oh yeah.
I don't think people realize how many people work over there.
It's unreal, and and they're great jobs and they're great benefits, and we love having. We're such a military community that's been rooted in us for so long, and there's some great tourist stuff. I mean, you have a beach. My gosh, that beach is freaking awesome. We got so much stuff going on around the beach. You got the North Beach area that's still underdeveloped, but you got guys like Lynn Fraser who are out there busting their tail to really make that a cool area. I mean, you do this every day. You see how much stuff is popping that a lot of people don't see because that's the business you're in. I love this place. We were talking about it this lunch we just had. I mean, we kind of were in that golden age of getting growth going again. And it's just fun to see some of that happen. I mean, when I was there, we built the American Bank Center. We built the new seawall. We built the new airport. We built the Hook Stadium. And Bill Kelly and I, who was on the council with me, we used to say all the time, we got to do as much as we can before people stop us.
Yeah.
We got to do as much as we can and get as much cool stuff
Well,
built.
who's spearheading stuff now? Like, who's really taking an active role on council, like, that you feel and support?
Yeah,
Or is it a collective effort? Because the way I see it is, and I think a couple of years ago, I had made a joke one time about, hey, I'm going to run for mayor. It was right after that one gentleman came on for like a week or two.
Dan McQueen.
Yeah. His resume wasn't exactly what his resume was.
Yeah, they didn't.
And I remember making that joke, like, hey, I'm going to run for mayor. But when I actually looked into it and the role that it was, I'm like, no, I don't think I'm that person. I knew that for sure when I saw Paulette do the city, the
State of the City.
State of the City.
Uh-huh.
And she was up there, and I was like, me and Moses were looking at each other. I was like, is she memorizing all this?
Oh,
I
it's
didn't.
on a teleprompter.
Yeah, see, I didn't see that. I was like,
yeah.
oh my gosh, she's doing so great. Like, this is incredible. Like, it felt like a presidential address.
Yeah.
And I can't do that role. So the fact that people like you,
I think
and
you
people
actually
like her,
could, but that's okay. I'm not saying you
I
should
don't
run
know.
against her for mayor.
no,
I'm
no,
just
not
saying,
mayor. But
you
I
could, 'cause
don't
you're
think
a
that'd be the
great
role.
speaker. Yeah.
I don't think that'd be the role I would want. I think maybe council. I think something to where I can have an impact and give ideas and give direction, authority to be like, hey, look, this is what I want too. And I think everybody on there wants these things to happen. So who is it that's stopping things now?
I don't think.
Or there's no stoppage now.
well,
Now
yeah.
it's just trying to collect together and like, hey, how are we going to do this?
I think it's a paradigm shift. When I first came back, it was, are we going to grow? Now it's, how are we going to grow? And that's a big shift, because now we're fighting on how we're going to grow, debating, right? Before it was, are we even going to grow? So that's what I tell people a lot of times that are younger, hadn't been here as long. Look, when I came back to town, we didn't even know if anything was going to grow. We were trying to get Chili's to come here. We were calling TGI Fridays personally, hey, can y'all please come to town? And now they come, right? And again, that's retail. I'm not saying, but those chains, they don't come to a city unless they know it can be sustained. So it took a long time for the Chili's and the Fridays and the Applebee's and all those chains. And I know that sounds like, well, who cares about a chain? Everybody has chains. Well, not when I came back to town.
Yeah, you're right.
We didn't have those kind. We had Whataburger. We didn't have a lot of chains, right? And so that was a big deal. We'd get on the phone and try to call and get these companies, hey, we don't even know where we're going to put you, but would you please consider coming to Corpus Christi? And they were like, where are you again?
Well, back then, and compared to now, I'm sure now if you call some of these places, like let's just say you call like a Costco, who I know for a while was looking, are you calling and sending over data? You sending over demos? Or back then where they just kind of, they drive by and be like, no, not feeling it?
Well, and that's what the Regional Economic Development Corporation does, and they're funded by the city and the county and San Patricio County and this whole conglomeration of people and individuals. My company is a member. And that's what they do 24/7. Their
I think
job is to
someone
recruit.
from there spoke at an event that Claudia had one time at Country Club, right?
Yeah.
I think you were there too.
Yeah,
She
yeah.
was really well spoken. She came out and talked about all the different places they were, like you said, they're responsible for.
That's what they do 24/7.
Basically, what's pitching?
Recruiting.
Like, hey,
They recruit. They recruit businesses on a regular basis. And if you look at their track record, they've been super successful at bringing some in. Now, you can argue, well, maybe they would have come anyway. Well, maybe they wouldn't have, right?
Yeah. Maybe
So-
they had plans to go to the valley and they would have skipped over us.
And if you don't think we had to work to get the Cheniers of the world and the Exxons of the world, and you have to have someone that's on that all the time. A lot of times, because every community wants these, they all want them. They all want these multi-gazillion-dollar investments. If you're not out there fighting for them, well, that was one of the things when I first ran. I remember saying, look, if I get on the city council, I'm going to make sure that we give $100,000 a year to the Regional Economic Development Corporation. You know how much the city gives now? About $700,000. But back then, I don't think they were given anything. And so we started, because the cities, governmental entities are supposed to take care of the basics, right? So cities are not good at economic development. Counties are not good. We're supposed to take care of roads and streets and police and fire and the basics, right? But I think we have responsibility to make sure that we also support economic development. That was how I felt like back then, because back then it was literally, I don't think we were giving them anything. So I said, I'm going to give $100,000, not me, but from the city. We did, and now it's up to about $700,000 because that Economic Development Corporation has done their job. Are they perfect? Can you find flaws? Sure. If you want to I'm the half full guy, right? I don't really care if there's a flaw here, or somebody messed up. But at the end of the day, did you do better, or did you do more good or less good? If you did more good, let's keep going. We'll tweak the rest. I'm not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater just because sometimes it doesn't go
But
well.
I think
right?
you kind of maybe think of something a while ago when you mentioned Chenier and you talked about American Bank Center and all these different places. I think our city, unfortunately, is like a kid who gets a new toy and it's like, oh my God, I got it. And then they get tired of it and they complain because like, oh, I'm going to need new toys. Yeah. And there's so much fun stuff here to do that I think it's just going to be people going back out and kind of reinventing some of these places we already have. Like downtown's been doing quite a good job.
Cool to finally see.
Their downtown Corpus Christi organizations and all those different people are making some fun stuff that, I know this was going to ask you as well. When y'all are trying to do these things for our city, does a lot of it take into fact that, hey, let's go see how San Antonio's doing certain things.
Absolutely.
And this city and this city. Not that we want to be Austin, because I don't think we'll ever be Austin, but I think we can be a very different version or grown-up version of Corpus.
Yeah.
Because you see like all the old downtown photos and you see how much like love and traffic was down there, and these buildings and the streets were just, it looked like the streets of New York with people walking around. You're like, wow, like whatever people were doing. Like what?
Because there wasn't a South Side. There wasn't alternative places to go. Downtown was the center, like they were on most cities back in the day. Downtowns were your hubs. Then everything starts, the urban sprawl, as they call it, starts happening. And so things go away from the downtown because you're spending your efforts on the island, on the South Side, on Calallen, on other areas, right? So it's a natural progression, but unfortunately sometimes you get away from the downtowns. Part of it too is you have landowners downtown that just let those buildings sit there, and that's what happened forever. You can't do anything as long as they pay their taxes and aren't in code violations. It's their building. If they want to sit it, make it look like
And what are they waiting for some of those people?
I don't know. Now some of them have started to change.
Yeah.
And again, go back and look. When I came back again, oh my gosh, you talk about a plight. You're talking about just horrible nothing. But you got cool places to live downtown now. You got cool restaurants. And let me tell you, that downtown management district, if you're not plugged into them, you ought to call, for your show, you ought to call Alyssa Barrera Mason.
Mm-hmm. We haven't talked to Alyssa. We talked to Emily Beardmore.
Okay.
And she came down.
From downtown management district. Okay,
and she was the one, it was like literally the day when they announced the Homewood Suites, when they announced all the different incentives.
Man.
Oh,
They got a great downtown management district.
Is there anything like that that's on the other parts of town? Because you give me the thought that when the city starts to grow or any city starts to grow, it's like a parent having more and more kids. Like, oh yeah, I forgot about them over there. Like, how do we help them too? So is there going to eventually be different organizations that are responsible for, say, London or for Southside or for the island? Is there already groups and they're just not as big?
There's different segmented groups. So the downtown management is a little different district because they have the ability to tax themselves, and they all do that. They choose to do that. Those businesses. And there's some funding from the city, a little funding from the county, but they fund themselves because they agree to tax themselves and put that money into the downtown management district. So it's a self-imposed tax.
Oh wow!
Because you got to have money for all these organizations. You got to have money to have these efforts, right? So that's what they do. They vote every year to tax themselves to improve themselves.
Interesting.
Very cool, right? But you've also got other things like you've got the Padre Island Business Association, you've got the Flower Bluff Business Association, you've got the Northwest Business Association, the West Side Business Association, Port Aransas has. So a lot of them have business associations, and a lot of what they do, and they're not as well funded as, say, Downtown Management District, but they are charged with economic development on their areas of town. So the answer is there's some of that, not as funded because they got to come up with their own money.
How do people get involved or get more funding? Is it just going to be really?
Well, the vehicle is these tax increment zones. So in different parts of our community, there are these they're called TIRZ, tax increment refinance zones. Mm-hmm. And what happens is you can set up an area like the island. I'm on that board, and it's called a TIRZ, and it's an area that is geographically written in, and you set that up to where a certain portion of those taxes goes to the entity, and a certain portion of those taxes goes to that TIRZ, and then there's a TIRZ board, and we end up using those specific funds to help spur development on the island, and that's the one I'm the most familiar with because I'm on it, and that's my precinct, right? We have financed in the last 6 months millions of dollars of future public improvements, because they have to be public improvements that will help spur these developers to come on. They will build it, and then we refund them or we reimburse them. So there's TIRZ situations all over Corpus Christi in certain areas that are set up to do exactly the kind of stuff you're talking about, is provide funding for growth in those areas. That island one has been highly successful because there's so much about to happen out there.
I've seen it.
Unreal. There's three big players, more than three, but three big players on that island that between the three of them, it's $1.5 billion, $2 billion worth of development over
I
the
think in
next
a good
10,
way,
15 years.
without this sounding bad, I think it's going to be so unrecognizable that people are going to go, where are we now? Because I felt that way over the last couple of years going and visiting Port A. After COVID and after it kind of shut down for a little bit, I've seen that city expand. It's what you would hope it would be. I think Port A and JP Luby are the beaches where, unfortunately, sometimes people come to town and they see North Beach and it's a little... not as much traffic. Like, this is the beach.
It's a cool
no, it is getting.
experience.
Oh, of course it is.
I love that.
I remember going to like
beach
Grand Prix.
experience. Oh my gosh.
I remember being down there. I remember
Lexington
I've seen the old photos.
Aquarium. No undertow.
Pier
So if you
99.
want to take your kids out there,
Yeah.
no, I mean seriously, I mean that's a big deal. Like you can go out in that water and you don't get sucked. I mean that's a big deal too. I mean,
But I think just people just don't understand in the city that things take time unless it was because what we're dealing with, and we mentioned Frisco a while ago, that was a city that was pre-planned prior. Like, hey, before we do anything over here, we got a lot of space. Here's what it's all going to be. Here's the way we're designing it. Now we're kind of patching places here and there, unfortunately, which over the years have, taken like downtown, for example, or just certain parts of town where it's like people just left and it's like no one knows what to do with it. And so there's a lot of that stuff downtown too. Even just call it like uptown, heading towards like where the bridge is at.
Yep.
I remember for a long time. Have you been over there, like past the Hook Stadium? Like it's actually really nice and clean. And I told Chris, I'm like, should we buy stuff over here? Because eventually, once there's some more traffic, like there's going to be spots that are needed, and there's a lot of available real estate over there.
Yeah, well, I mean, you got stuff that's like Concrete Street's cool, and Hogemeyer's Barbecue, and that Hook Stadium, and Brewster Street, and so that's when we were doing all that. That was the hope, right? That was a plighted area. It was not much going on. So when we built the American,
There's just warehouses and parking
it was
lots,
cotton gins, and storage units, and so when we went in there and said, look, we've got this opportunity to build the American Bank Center, and we've got this opportunity to build a Hook Stadium. Well, okay, people were probably going, well, why are y'all doing it all down there? Well, on American Bank Center, it made total sense. Hooks, because when that was going on, that's where Nolan Ryan and his family wanted it. And if Nolan Ryan's bringing a opportunity like,
yes, sir.
well, I mean, yeah, that's kind of what it was. I mean, we showed him different spots, right? We didn't pick this. We said, here's this and here's this. What about this? What about here? And he's like, no, that's where I want to be.
Oh, wow, I didn't know he had that big of a part in it.
Yeah. Oh, no, it was his family's deal that they came to town because at the time they were super affiliated with the Astros. They had this AA affiliated team. They already had Dell Diamond, right? They'd already built it in Round Rock. I remember taking a trip. They wanted us to go see it. We're thinking, wow, this is a cool park. And they built ours even cooler. I mean, ours is better than Dell Diamond if you really go and break it down. In fact, that stadium where the Hooks are, Whataburger Field, has had awards for one of the best AA fields in the country. But those were all things that people were griping about because we had to pass bonds for them, right? And we could still do it within maintaining a decent tax level because I'm the last guy that raises taxes. I mean, I vote no on property taxes all the time because I think you can do things without just raising taxes, and a lot of people just want to raise taxes.
For people that don't know, I mean, give me ideas. How are we? Because a lot of people feel that way. Like, I think a lot of people just jump to no because they're like, well, property taxes will go up. Property taxes will go up. So what are these other ways? Like you said, some of these different organizations and what else?
Well, and what you can do is you can, to me, there's nothing wrong with debt, right? Now, you don't want to have too much debt to where the bonding agencies kick you in the tail. But to me, debt's fine as long as your cash flow can cover it. And as long as your debt service doesn't go up to where you have to raise people's property taxes, which is doable if you're a smart financial planner and you don't just if you just think about where you can cut other things, like I don't care what anybody tells you, there's always fat in government. Always, always, always. But nobody wants to make cuts because it's so political. So when I go in there and try to make cuts and I can't get anywhere on cuts, then I'm going to vote no to property tax increases, but I'm never going to vote no to doing exciting, cool new projects because I know you can do it and still not raise people's taxes.
When you talk about like the debt, does a city as a whole or as an organization or entity have debt?
Cities and the counties have lots of debt. Yeah, because like for Nueces County, where I'm at, right? We have about $120 million general fund budget. Not very big, right? We have other funds, but they're general funds that comes from property taxes. Whereas the city has a $1.5 billion budget. It's ridiculous. I think it's out of control. No offense to my friends at the city. I love the mayor and all those council members. They've raised taxes every year for whatever, and they don't.
This last year was crazy.
Yeah, they don't try to make any cuts whatsoever, right? Counties raise taxes, but it's not with me voting for them, but because I know, I work with financial planners and all the time, and they tell me, yeah, if you like, we passed a $50 million certificate of obligation bond 2 years ago. And I said, okay, is this 50 million that we're going to pass, is this going to raise taxes at all? He said, absolutely not. You have enough. You got debt dropping off. You've got, your debt service can go down. If you pass this $50 million bond, you've got enough capacity to where you can go do what you want to do, and it will not raise taxes. Well, so we passed the 50 instead of the 150, right? So maybe we're not doing it as fast, but we're still doing a lot. You know, I mean, we're rebuilding Bob Hall Pier. We're building Hilltop Center out here. We're doing a lot of things, but it doesn't mean you have to raise taxes all the time. There's a balance in life, right? Now, if it's an emergency, that's different. But I mean,
when you say an emergency, when it's like a natural disaster,
a hurricane happens or something like that, and you get creamed, and FEMA doesn't come through for you, or you know, whatever. But I'm just saying, in general terms, you really can do what you need to do and not raise taxes, because look, think of all the new growth. That's not raising taxes, right? There's taxes. If the way it works is, it's called the no new tax rate, right? If someone votes for that, then they're voting legally not to raise your taxes. If they vote for the same tax rate as last year, and this is what a lot of politicians talk about it, and they say, well, the tax rate didn't go up. Yeah, but valuations went up, so your taxes went up. So the city a lot of times likes to say, well, look, the tax rate's the same it's always been.
Yeah, but my value.
Right. Whereas at the county, when I came on to the county's tax rate was 32 cents. We're down to 25. You know, we've gone down. That doesn't mean we haven't raised taxes. I've voted no against those tax increases because I didn't think we needed to do them. But everybody likes to just say, oh, we didn't raise your taxes. I mean, God bless Paulette. That's what she said at the State of the City, and it's just not right. I mean, she didn't raise the tax rate, but the city does that, right? If you look at the levy when I left, you know, whatever it was, the levy meaning how much did we collect? Probably 750, 800 million, and now it's $1.5 billion. Well, guess what? They raised your taxes because that's not new growth. New growth doesn't count as a tax increase. You build a new shopping center, that's new growth. You build a new house, that's new growth. But if you're taking money off of valuation increases, that's property tax increase. And that's where it gets dicey. So you can do it, but you have to work hard, and you have to be creative, and you have to think outside the box. I can barely ever get anybody to cut anything because nobody thinks, oh, we don't have any fat. Oh, my. You know,
yeah, we do.
Everybody does. I guarantee if the city went through and really looked at what they did, they could cut millions and millions out of that budget, just like we could do at the county. Del Mar can do. But nobody wants to do cuts because it's political. Nobody wants to cut a job. Nobody wants to cut a service. Nobody wants to consolidate. Nobody, because it's hard, because people don't want, oh my gosh, someone over here may not like it, or it may make someone mad. That's the only thing that I think is the negative in our community right now is we should be more concerned about the fact that we are, in my opinion, raising taxes more than we should. And you feel it because you own property.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you know, did you pay more or less in property tax?
Pay a whole lot more.
Okay. Then if you paid more, your taxes got raised.
But I know that, how do you say it? Like, I know that's how the city funds itself, and I realize it's going to happen. And I haven't had a lot of clients the last 6 months or 8 months, like, hey, what do I do? And da-da-da. They're all freaking out. And I told a lot of them, you know, that's part of, one, owning real estate. You know that. Two, it's kind of just the price you pay, the amount you pay to grow that equity. It's like, hey, that's a tax on your equity that one day you're going to cash out. No one's going to complain after 2 years when you tax out or when you cash out and it's all tax free. They're like, oh, cool. Da-da-da. I was like, oh, so was it worth a couple extra $100?
Right.
Yeah, it was worth it. It was worth it. And like you said, the evaluations go up. But I think the thing that we're facing right now, especially with real estate, and I was going to ask you if you've seen this, especially since you own a title company, the last 8 months have been a little slower than what we've seen the last couple of years. Now it's starting to pick back up again. Do you see those waves? Like, do you feel it? Like, do you check in with everybody? Like, hey guys, how many contracts we got, or how many files we have right now?
I have a system in my company that I can literally pull up at any time and see where we are year to date versus last year to date, or 2 years ago, or 3 years ago. And so I do it. I've done that every year I've been in business. I've done it every year, whether I've owned it or just been an employee. And to compare to 21 and 22,
you can't. Yeah,
it was such a bubble. You know, like COVID killed a lot of industries. Ours went nuts, right? I mean, we couldn't close stuff fast enough. You couldn't do them. I mean, it was just the way it was. So I compare now to 19, which 19 is a little more, because if you think about COVID started in March of 20, right? There was a little downturn, and then it popped back up. So half of 20 was great. All of 21 was great. 3/4 of 22 was great until the interest rates started going down about August or September. That's when and you had that back inventory. Like, you know, we have about a 60-day lull, so we don't start to see things slow down until the orders don't come in. So if they come in July, we're still looking good in August and September. But when the interest rates started to slow down in September is when we started to see the cliff, right?
Well, it was just yesterday or today we hit a 30-year high. 23-year high, because they said that it hasn't been this high since January of 2000.
Right, all to stop
and
inflation.
we're at a 7.5%.
Yeah, which is.
And so what I've been telling a lot of people that I feel like right now we're at a stagnant point, but it's going to start taking off again. Usually, and this is just my prediction, usually towards like election time, I feel like a lot of people want to be the hero, and things start kind of shifting with industries or jobs or just news of certain things. Do you see that too whenever it comes to time
without a doubt,
election year?
Presidential election is always, there's always a
I never
shift.
understood that before.
It's just,
but
some of it's
now I'm
emotional.
starting to understand it.
And some of it's just emotional.
Sure.
Like interest rates. Okay, when the interest rates started going up, let's be honest. Interest rates were 2. I mean, come on, that's just 2.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're getting 2.5. I mean, that's
like free
that's
money.
silly. It was free money. Like I don't borrow, but even I was like, okay, I may have to go borrow just because it's so cheap,
Yeah.
right? So when it got up to 6. People panicked because it was 3 times what it was, but 6? You're panicking over.
It's still good.
7. It's really good.
That's what
Come
mom and dad
on.
had. Yeah.
I probably had houses at 11 and 12 back in my day. I mean, 6, 7.
My mom, who paid off her house maybe 4 or 5 years ago, to the day she paid it off, and I didn't know this. I should have asked. She was paying 11%.
My sister
on
had
that
a,
last
my
like
sister
20
had a
or 30,000
up in Massachusetts.
Really?
Yeah. I'm like, I finally was like, come on, we got to pay your house off. This is crazy.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago. So, but people panic. And they stop, and they're emotional, and so they don't know what to do, and it's tougher because it's your payment's 3 times what it was.
Yeah.
If it goes from 2 to 6, that's 3 times more, right? So, but if you really stop and think about it, what I think this is now, what I see is it's not a seller's or a buyer's market. It's a solid market to where everybody's got to earn it. Mm-hmm. You tell
Sure.
me, you do this more than I do. I mean, that's what I feel, but you see it every day. Would you say that it's a seller's market or a buyer's market?
I would say it's definitely dependent on, because people always ask me the same question: is it a buyer or seller's market? I go, it depends on what you got. So like right now, if you're on the south side and you have a house that's a 3.2 that we can sell between 250 to 300 all day, it's a seller's market. If you have a house right now on the south side that's closer to like a 400,000, where you're competing against some of the new construction that's going up, it's going to take a little longer. Someone's going to have to absolutely love your house to purchase that over new construction, because they're like, hey, this is a brand new house. Your house is 5 years old. It's not that it's old, but I feel like you said, it just depends on where you are in that market. You got $1 million house, you got an $800,000 house. Yeah, you're probably going to have a hard time. And so right now, I think we have a shortage of inventory for where people are now realizing, hey, look, like you said, a couple years ago, 2%, 3%, I can afford this much house. That got cut in half. So for those people that were on the fence of buying the last couple of years, now get into the market, they see it and go, this isn't what I thought I was going to get. And they're first-time home buyers, or maybe people trying to upgrade. There's nowhere to upgrade to, because the house that they want to upgrade to costs they cost triple of what they're living in. It's like, I can't afford triple what I'm living in to go up just a couple square feet, to go down the street or to buy the neighbor's house.
Right. And so that's what's happening. The cash deals are still out there. The mortgage deals are not as much, because you've hit the nail on the head. Are you going to go up 3 times on your payment to get another 500 square feet house? You're not.
People are kind of stuck.
You're going to sit tight.
I think the answer is to, one, for people that are in those 2 or 3%, hold on to it and save up money, and then buy something else and keep that as a rental and buy something else, and it'll even out. Or 2, I think right now, and this is what me and Chris have been discussing quite a bit, I think there's an actual need finally for true affordable housing. And it's probably going to have to be in areas that maybe we haven't thought about yet, to where it actually makes sense to build a 3.2 at 110 square foot and charge $250,000 for a 3.2, because you just can't get it anywhere.
Right. No, I agree. And I mean, you're doing some of that downtown. I've seen your stuff. I mean, the cities gave a piece of property over.
We're doing it because we have to.
Well, yeah, right. And the city did a project over there where the old fire station was, right? As you're coming uptown, Karankawa, I get those mixed up, right? And they basically gave that piece of land to whoever's developing that to do affordable housing, and they've got some affordable housing coming in. Now, that's different affordable housing than you're talking about, right? That's more like low income, probably affordable housing. But without a doubt, I mean, there isn't a lot out there in that market price you're talking about, and a lot of people can afford that market price. But as you said, when it gets over 400, it gets a little dicier when those interest rates are going up. But
right now, it's like 1%. It's dollar for dollar. So if you see a $400,000 house with interest rates, it's $400,000 a month.
Which is how it used to be.
Yeah.
Which is kind of how it used to be before the interest rates went just to the point where the
But
Fed
think
was
about,
at
I think
zero.
we're,
The Fed was at zero.
I think we're having the problem is there was such an influx of buyers the last couple of years that they are the majority. So when you go to work and you have friends and family, if they all bought, there's a huge majority. They're telling you, no, you don't need, no way, dude. Wait till it's like 2 or 3% again. Everyone's like, all right, I guess so. If you're right. And so that majority is speaking louder than the minority of like, hey, well, maybe I should just buy something and then wait it out and I'll have some equity grown. If not, I'm just going to keep renting.
Well, and I don't have a crystal ball. I don't see it. I just don't see it going back to 2 or 3. You know, I just
Short of a global event, I don't think so.
Right.
Short
of a global event.
I'm not sure how you feel about this.
Yeah.
My, Jessica's gonna laugh. My theory is the next time we have it is when? When's it gonna happen? When the aliens come.
Or the apocalypse, one of the two, right?
That's when people. It's sad that people would still be wanting to borrow money when the end of the world's coming. It's like, hey, before I go out, I need a Lambo. I want a pool. Let me go ahead and take out as much as you can. It's like, all right, buddy, whatever you want.
Everybody's got their theories, right?
Yeah, so I think short of a world pandemic or world event, I think we're not going to really see that anytime soon. But who knows? I mean, over the next couple of years with elections and everything else going on, I think there's a lot of industries that are going to shake things up. I think AI and all these different energy sectors. Yep. I think if they do what they want to do with like energy and electric cars and just, figuring out, hey, we're going to go this way with nuclear, we're going to go this way with coal, I think that's really what's going to start happening. Because that's what happened with oil. That's when we had the big boom back in the 80s, 90s. It was because oil was just everywhere.
Absolutely. But
there's going to be some new industry.
And this is why you got into what you got into. There's only so much real estate available. There's
Sure.
only so much land available. So to me, real estate's always is a stretch because obviously the REITs happened back in the 80s and there's things that happened that crashed that market too. But it's always a pretty good investment because your real estate can come back. Your stocks, you invest in the stock market. If it goes down, it
business can die.
Come back. Yeah. Right. It cannot come back. But if you buy your real estate now and you hold your real estate, at some point it's going to come back because there's only so much, and people are still moving to Texas in hordes, like in droves. People are moving to Texas. They're getting out of California because they're overtaxed and they're overregulated. So, like it or not, Texas is a super business-friendly state. Super, affordable for people to live in compared to other places. We as a coastal community are very affordable compared to
absolutely
Destin,
California,
Florida,
Miami,
right? I mean, all these other places. So, to me, in Texas and in Corpus Christi area, Corpus Christi proper, real estate's I think it's still a solid investment. And as I said, I compare from year to year. I'm way off last year, like way off. 19, I'm not. I'm okay. I mean, I'm running.
Which is the last normal year.
Right. I mean, and so I'm okay. I mean, we're doing fine. And we started making our cuts, not people, but a lot of times we had people leave and we just didn't replace, so we got lucky. And then we made some other cuts that we could do. We consolidated some offices. We did some things that we needed to do to be okay. And because of those things, we've been okay. Are we blowing it out of the park? No. Are we profitable? Yeah. Are people still making money and bonuses? Yep. Are they making what they were last year? No. But they're not dying, or anything like that.
So before I let you go, because one, I appreciate your time. I know you're really busy. I didn't even get to ask this question. For a lot of people that don't understand, I know real estate for a lot of people, politics is really confusing. Real estate's really confusing. Stocks, there's all these different subjects that sometimes people talk about. And I think as you're a regular person, sometimes people go, yeah, and they don't really understand it. So it's nice to kind of talk about these things a little more in depth. And
absolutely,
I didn't know a lot of stuff about the way cities run and the different terms you were using. But with title, what's a title company? What do they do?
Basically, the easiest way to say it is if you're buying or selling your house, we ensure that you have clear title. That's the simple version, right? We do searches back to sovereignty that basically say we follow the chains of title, and we ensure you that when you buy your piece of property, title's clear, you own it. We get one bite at the apple. We're not like home insurance or auto insurance that you pay every month, all the time, every year. You pay it one time. And as long as you own that house, you have an insurance policy that says you own that house. That's your title. If someone comes back at you if there's a lien on there that someone missed or whatever the case may be, or wait a minute, back in 1957 it wasn't transferred right and it's really not mine, and you make a claim, then you have a policy that'll defend you for that title. And so we ensure that title.
And
is clear.
how long has y'all's title company been in Corpus?
We have evolved. Over 50 years.
So what were people doing before that?
Just
hoping.
Title insurance has been around a long time. I don't know what the history of it is, and I can't tell you how long, but it's been out there. It's been a product that's been out there for a long time. Banks now mandate it, because they're like,
They want to insure their loan,
well,
yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So they, you get an owner's policy and you get a mortgagee's policy, and they demand it. If it's a cash deal, you don't have to get title policy. And not just because I'm in the business. Would I do it? I do cash deals, and I still get them. I mean,
For sure.
I think it's good, and for the price you pay one time, it's nice, security, and it's regulated. We charge what TDI, Texas Department of Insurance, lets us charge. So we all charge about the same.
What's so scary about it is that, for people that are going through the process of buying real estate and maybe their only experience was maybe like an owner finance deal or a brother-in-law deal.
Or a quit claim.
We can call it.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
But I've had clients, even recently. Hey, so how'd you buy this house? Well, there was this guy, and I saw him on Craigslist.
He was on the corner and said, we'll sell a house for food.
Literally on Craigslist, he told me give him $10,000. He gave me the paperwork and da-da-da. I was like, that guy doesn't even own it. And we've had situations where people have done owner finances and then owner finances someone else. And, there's always sticky situations that can come up when you don't go to a title company. So basically my plug is make sure when you're doing a real estate transaction, go to the best, go to someone that knows what they're doing. It's a super important part of the process that people just don't think about or overlook because they don't understand it. They're like, I don't know what that is. That's the place I go to sign paperwork, right? Yeah, but behind the scenes, here's what they're doing.
Right.
What you just said.
And what we do, we're a local agent. Every dollar that we make stays here in the coastal bend. Every profitable dollar we make, it goes right here, right? And that's not the case for, the national title companies, that their profits go elsewhere. That's a big deal. Our underwriter is the first, second, or third largest, depending on the month, but probably first or second largest underwriter in the country. So they're a multi-billion Fortune 100 company. That's who our underwriter is. And so you got to also know who your underwriters are, because not every title company has the same underwriters, and some of them aren't as sound as other underwriters, just like anyone else. Ours has been around, forever. And in fact, I used to work for First American Title, and then, long story short, but when I worked for them up in here, I worked for them up in the DFW area. I had some offices in Houston, San Antonio, but then when I came back here full time, I bought the local company from them. They were my partner for a while, and then I bought them out. But we have a great relationship with them. We're one of their top agents, and they are definitely our top underwriter. And that's important too, is who are the underwriters and how sound are the underwriters? Because, there are some regional underwriters that aren't as financially solid as First American Title, who's the second, probably largest, maybe first, depending on, like I said, underwriter in the country, and are very well reserved and worth billions. So, that's kind of who you want underwriting.
Hell yeah.
Well,
sir, this is Gino's table. I feel
Appreciate
like everyone
being here.
brings a lot to the table. You definitely bring a lot. I appreciate you coming in. If you
Thanks,
could,
man.
sign our table, grab one of these Sharpies.
I was hoping I'd get to do that.
Oh, of
right?
course.
We got a purple one. That's
Do
it.
whatever
I'm doing it in
color
purple, buddy. Got to do my TCU purple.
You are the man. Next time I have to
sorry,
get you on here with Chris, we'll pull him over here. That way we
Yeah,
can,
I don't know.
we can see what he says. Last time he did this, he was almost falling asleep. Poor guy. Yeah. I was like, bro, you realize we're recording, right? But, damn, look at that autograph. Look at that piece of wood.
Man, with the purple.
Brent, thank you very much.
That's
we're going to get some
from Iris
pictures.
right there.
Yeah, we're going to get you some pictures before you leave. I appreciate you coming in, sir.
Thanks, Gino. I
Thank you very
appreciate
much.
it always, man. You're